checking in. First round of the 2020 NFL virtual draft. I said virtual, yes. The virtual draft just wrapped up, and I've got former Alabama receiver Mac Hereford here with some insight and analysis on his teammates in their NFL landing spots. Mac, the big Herf, what is up, buddy? How are you?
Nothing much. I'm doing well. Just, maintaining a good, healthy lifestyle in this quarantine.
Hey, nothing wrong with that. I love it. So let me get your take first and foremost. Obviously, I'm in Virginia right now, so it's 12:45 in the morning. I know it's 11:45 where you're at. Things just wrapped up. The first 32 picks off the board. What did you make of the virtual draft? The expectations going into it when you're watching it unfold on TV, what's your takeaway?
I thought it was pretty phenomenal. We haven't had anything like that before. And I didn't know what to expect, but the NFL handled it really well. I think that they were able to show, a lot of the emotions that people like to see in the, regular draft that we have. The commissioner was doing some funny stuff, I thought. Those little, fan cameras behind him.
Yeah.
But I think it ran smoothly. There was no glitches, which, they were a little bit afraid of that, but everything went well, and it's fun to watch.
Yeah, I think there was some concern that the virtual aspect of it could have some glitches. But, I know the IT teams and the tech teams have been in the guys' houses the last couple of weeks, getting the cameras set up. They're doing it all off iPhones. And so overall, I agree with you. I think it was pretty cool. I thought it was a lot of fun to watch. And, truth be told, you were kind of anxious to see, how things unfolded. And, of all people, Joe Burrow obviously gets the number one pick. And, I don't want to say it was uneventful, but the expectation was there. And really, Joe Burrow is just kind of an even keel guy. And there wasn't a lot of celebration and hoo-ha and whatnot. It was obviously he and his mom and dad sitting there. And so that kind of set the tone, but then you just saw a lot of the different personality. And that kind of brings me to the first Alabama pick, which would have been the second quarterback off the board. Your boy, Tua Tagovailoa, going number 5 to the Miami Dolphins, and certainly an exciting, first and foremost exciting because I think there was a lot of doubts going into this, about Tua, where he would end up, what's his shelf life, what's his overall, is he fragile? Is this a guy that passed all the tests? He passes the eye test as far as we're all concerned, but what about the injury? How is he healed? So when you got to see him go off the board as somebody that knows him better than anybody, what was your reaction and emotion?
Yeah, it was awesome. It was, I think a lot of people expected him to go to the Dolphins, and I think the Dolphin fans were pretty hyped up about it, to say the least. And it was just cool to see that, all of his work and just perseverance paid off, and the fact that they didn't, listen to those little small physical tests that he had, that people saying he failed in, and all this other stuff. They're saying that those guys would lose kind of stock because he wasn't able to go see NFL teams right now.
Mm-hmm.
And he had those concerns, but I'm glad that they, looked past that and picked him because I think he's the right guy for them.
Yeah. And I think in some ways, how things have sort of transpired in this past couple of months, and obviously more recently with the pandemic. And it's been a tough process, and Tua outlined that tonight for us. But for him to kind of get through this and to be able to prove to guys and to be very upfront with them and to just kind of show all the medical records, obviously put everything out there, in some ways there had to have been a lot of fear and concern because he's not able to get in front of these guys and truly be able to show them what he's worth and what he's all about and sort of where he is from a health standpoint. But truth be told, for him to be able to kind of overcome all that through this process with the challenges that come with this pandemic, to me, that's even more impressive for him to get where he is and land where he did at number 5 with the Dolphins. Don't you think?
Oh, for sure. And I think they were talking last minute, before the draft, that the Dolphins might make some trades and give up that number 5 pick. And that would have been a concern for Tua, but they stuck with it. And I think they mentioned I think they passed up on Drew Brees one year is what they were saying, because he had some kind of injury concern, and he ended up just playing great. So I was fingers crossed right there. They need to go with Tua, and they did. And it just shows a lot about him to do that, to continue to battle and just be the 5th overall pick.
Yeah, and before we move on to the next guy, I just wanted to kind of point out he did the interview after he was drafted and kind of talking about the process being very difficult for him, especially in these recent months. More recently in March, I guess there was a tornado that came through Nashville, which we all heard about and learned about. But during that tornado, his car gets destroyed. Certainly a scary time. And then he talks about just the overall challenges. So that happens to him. Obviously, the challenges with the pandemic and having to get out there and prove everyone. And then just the fact that literally he had to make this gut-wrenching, devastating, heartbreaking decision, but it's heartbreaking for him because he wants to be with his team, with the Crimson Tide, but then he also knows that it's a business decision. And so when you kind of put that all into one, knowing Tua as well as you do, how hard do you think that process was for him? And I guess now that he's on the other side of it, how does that turn out?
I mean, I can't express how difficult it was for him. He's also got a little brother there who it's really cool. It's been awesome to see their relationship and him coach his little brother up and how close they are. But he's just so close with people in the staff. Jeff Allen and him are so close, and Coach Saban. And he's such a leader. And I know that it was like really, really hard. And for most people, everyone understands. Like, you're going to be a first rounder. Like, go ahead, get paid. But for him, it was probably a really tough decision just because of how much he cares about his team and his teammates.
Yeah, absolutely. All right. So moving down the board, next player off the board, Jedrick Wills, offensive tackle. He went number 10 to the Cleveland Browns. Great spot for Willis. I guess the Browns, are really kind of overhauling that offensive tackle spot for the offseason. So give us some insight on Jedrick Wills, who he was as a teammate and his landing spot there with the Browns.
Yeah, I'm extremely excited for him. And he's actually going to end up with Mac Wilson, which will be kind of fun.
Oh, yeah.
Those two great personalities. But Jed was just a great person to have in the locker room. I can think about the times that he's just goofing around and he's fun. He plays a lot of Xbox and Fortnite with the guys. I can remember when we started playing and messing with each other at the national championship in Atlanta when Fortnite just became a thing. But it was just cool because you usually don't see someone get into all that kind of stuff while in football. And he just loved it and just expresses himself openly, and he's just a fun person to be around. I think he's going to do really well at the Browns.
All right, so pretty cool storyline. Obviously, number 12 and number 15 overall pick. You get Henry Ruggs the third, obviously going to the Raiders, and then you get Jerry Jeudy going to the Broncos, number 12 and 15. And I guess making history as Alabama football history, that is, to be drafted, a duo to be drafted in the first round. Pretty cool stuff. So we'll start with Henry Ruggs and just getting to see him, first of all, sitting in the bathrobe. That was pretty cool. Like, what did you think of the attire there?
I thought that was pretty bold. I didn't it was just funny. I mean, that's Ruggs, he's out there. He's just comfortable with himself and a good guy. And I was laughing. I thought that was awesome.
So, that was actually kind of a thing for Old Spice. So essentially Old Spice, it was, I guess, to bring awareness to the fact that Old Spice is obviously making substantial donations for the pandemic. And, so I guess, I don't know if they, approached him about that. But to your point, I think it shows that Henry Ruggs is a guy that is comfortable in his own skin. So if you're going to pick somebody to kind of rock the robe, I think he's definitely the guy. Am I right?
100%. He's a funny guy, but he's also just a really great relationship person, great friend. If anything was ever going wrong in the locker room or you're down, he was one of the first people to notice and kind of come up to you and ask, what's going on. Cause I know he battled a lot of adversity, with family stuff, and it's just cool with seeing how he handled his whole situation and the thing to Rod Scott, his friend. I mean, it just shows a lot about him. He's very emotional, and, sympathetic to others. And I think that's really cool.
Yeah, so the Raiders certainly getting a great athlete in Ruggs. How do you think that plays out at the next level? And I know, there was obviously some discussion about, is Ruggs going to go first or Jerry Jeudy? The two are kind of interchangeable in some ways, obviously with their skill set. But, Henry Ruggs, how do you see his skill set sort of translating at that next level?
Yeah, I mean, personally, I thought that Jerry would go first just because of the talk before the draft, different things I'd seen with his game. But I can definitely understand why someone would go with Ruggs. And I think that, the Raiders wanted a guy with speed. Ruggs had, the fastest time in the combine. And he's tall. He's a good, guy who they can develop into a great receiver at the Raiders. And, I don't know if they're wanting someone who is as versatile as Jeudy, more just some guy who was extremely fast and could fit the role they need at receiver for them.
Yeah, absolutely. So then you do go down the board to number 15, and obviously Jerry Jeudy getting the pick. Tell us a little bit about Jerry Jeudy, the guy Jerry Jeudy.
Yeah, no, Jerry is very competitive in practice, and he makes that clear. Does a lot of talking. It's positive talk with the defensive teammates. Worked a lot with Diggs. Always having fun and never lost that. At the college level, you kind of see guys just like get so tense or serious in practice. Jeudy would just have fun with it and would always lighten the mood, whether it be on the field or in the locker room. And then one thing I think that is so cool is I mentioned it on some guys when we did draft analysis earlier, but his just work ethic. You saw, I think I saw a video of him working out this morning, like early in the morning. I mean, that's just how he is. He outworks everybody, but he's also at the top. So it's really cool to see that.
Yeah. And so, with that work mentality and obviously his skill set, and I think, he hasn't achieved his ceiling. He hasn't reached the top. I think his ceiling is very high, and obviously he has, some tremendous abilities. How do you think that translates, obviously, as he, moves into that role with the Denver Broncos?
Yeah, I think that he has some skills that, he's just a really raw, like talented receiver. And some of these older guys in the league are going to help him develop, and help him be like a lot better than he is today. And he's already just so talented. So I think that you'll see him fit into a role that they need. And I think that the older guys will coach him up. And he'll be a really good receiver. I think he'll strengthen his hands, get a little bit bigger, and fit in really well there.
No doubt about it. And as we kind of wrap this conversation up, any surprises to you? I know as we were kind of texting as the last couple of picks were coming down, 31, 32, kind of saying, oh, I hope X gets picked. I hope X gets picked. Just your thoughts, any surprises? Obviously, X was a guy, Xavier McKinney was a guy that you obviously hoped and some of us thought might go first round. Just your overall thoughts on that. Any other surprises that kind of jump out to you?
Yeah, I mean, you said the main one there, Xavier McKinney. You saw him on is it Mel Kiper? Is that how you say his name, or however it is? He had him as the number one guy, for the last like 15 picks, 16 picks. And to me, it's just crazy to see someone like that passed up on the first round. I mean, he's got all the ability. He's so good on the field, but I mean, his character is unreal. Like, there's no problem with him. It's like when your team, like the Kansas City Chiefs, I was like, you got to take Xavier McKinney when you have a pick to use like that. So I was really shocked he didn't get selected in the first round. And then I think that Diggs, I was surprised maybe that some other DBs were taking over him just because he's played at the higher level, has great length, and, his brother's an NFL talent. So,
yeah, definitely kind of two surprises there, but I imagine they will go pretty early tomorrow as we get into the second and third and fourth and fifth and sixth and seventh rounds, right? But certainly exciting times. Obviously enjoyed watching this virtual draft. I guess, now we kind of go back to doing whatever we call this normal thing, right? Our new normal for a little while, but certainly an exciting night. And I think it definitely gave people some excitement and some things to watch. But again, we appreciate your insight. It's good to hear things are going good your way. And I know we're all kind of hunkering down and can't wait for this thing to pass. But again, we appreciate the insight, Mac, and hang in there, and we'll check in with you soon.
Thank you so much for having me. And, I really appreciate it, and glad you are doing well.